Imagine this scenario. Not a market correction, not a recession, an actual economic collapse. Banks freeze accounts for 30 days. Your brokerage is temporarily inaccessible. The currency of your country drops 50% in value in 3 weeks. What do you have left? Take a moment and actually answer that. Not theoretically, actually. If your brokerage statement went to zero on your screen for 30 days and your checking account was frozen, what in your possession or your ownership would still hold value? What could you still use, sell, or leverage? If the answer is very little, or if you're not entirely sure, this video is about closing that gap. Not because collapse is inevitable, but because the psychological peace that comes from knowing you would survive it is one of the most powerful anxiety reduction tools available to anyone who has built wealth. In every hyperinflationary collapse of the 20th century, Weimar Germany in the 1920s, Zimbabwe in the 2000s, Argentina in 2001, people who held gold recovered their purchasing power within 18 months. People who held cash recovered 0% of it. That's not a theory, that's a historical record. And the historians who have studied Jewish wealth preservation across 3 millennia have documented something even more specific. 5 categories of assets that survived every single one of those resets. The Babylonian exile, the Roman confiscation, the Spanish Inquisition, the Holocaust, while everything else was lost. Those are the 5 assets we're going to examine today. And at around minute 12, I'll tell you about the one category that no financial statement will ever show you, but that may be the most protective of all 5. Let me be precise about what we're actually protecting against. Most financial planning operates around what economists call expected value, the probability-weighted average of outcomes. It's excellent for managing normal volatility, but there's a category of risk that expected value thinking handles very poorly: the tail event. The scenario that is unlikely, but devastating. The thing that, when it happens, wipes out the gains of a decade. Nassim Nicholas Taleb formalized this in his 2012 book, Antifragile. But the concept is much older. He describes 3 types of systems: fragile ones that break under stress, robust ones that resist stress, and anti-fragile ones that actually gain from it. The goal, especially for someone who has already built wealth and whose primary objective is preservation, is not maximum return. It is anti-fragility. Building a portfolio where some part of it performs better precisely when everything else is under stress. Jewish wealth preservation historically was not designed by financial theorists. It was designed by repeated catastrophic experience. And the 5 assets that emerged from that experience are, in Taleb's framework, either anti-fragile or robustly resistant. They don't just hold value when conditions deteriorate. They maintain or increase their function. Here's the modern trap that most wealthy people fall into. They diversify within a single asset class system. They spread across equities, bonds, real estate, but all within the same political jurisdiction, the same currency, the same legal framework. When that framework is stable, the strategy works. When the framework itself becomes unstable, when the government, the currency, or the legal system changes, what looked like diversification turns out to be concentration. Everything was in the same container. The container broke. Now at minute 3, here's the loop I want to open, and we'll close it at minute 11. Jewish families historically held one specific asset category that most modern portfolio managers would not categorize as an investment at all. It's not gold. It's not real estate. It's not cash. And it may be the single most consistent predictor of economic survival across every documented crisis in Jewish history. Hold that. Here's the exercise for right now. Take every significant asset you own, or the categories if you prefer, and ask 3 questions about each one. Question 1. Can this be physically confiscated by a government or institution? Question 2. Can you carry this, digitally or physically, across a national border? Question 3. Does this generate value in any economic condition? Meaning not just growth conditions, not just stable conditions, but in crisis conditions specifically. If an asset fails all three, if it can be confiscated, cannot be moved, and only generates value in stable conditions, you have what I'd call a concentration fragility. Not an immediate danger, but a structural vulnerability. Mark your answers. We'll come back to them. In 1492, when the Spanish crown expelled Jewish residents from Spain, an estimated 200,000 people had 90 days to leave. Land was confiscated. Fixed property was lost. Businesses tied to physical locations disappeared. But here's what the historical record documents about the families who rebuilt most quickly. Within a generation, not within a century. They were the families where at least one member held certified professional skills. Physicians, translators, merchants with established trading relationships across multiple countries, scholars whose knowledge was in demand regardless of political borders. Within 2 generations, the Sephardic communities that relocated to the Ottoman Empire had rebuilt commercial networks that dominated Mediterranean trade. That's the Loop 3 moment I'm opening now, at minute 6, and we'll close it at 13. Here's the question. Why is it that in every documented Jewish economic catastrophe, the first wealth to recover is always knowledge-based, relationship-based, and skill-based? And the last wealth to recover is always land, fixed assets, and cash. What does the pattern actually tell us? Hold that. Now let me walk you through all 5 assets with specific detail. Asset 1. Portable skills and certified professional credentials. The Talmud in Kiddushin, 82a, states that a person should teach their child a clean and easy craft. The emphasis is not on which craft, it's on the portability. A skill that travels, a credential recognized across borders. In the modern context, professional certifications, intellectual property, business systems, proprietary methodologies. These are the 21st century version of the medieval Jewish physician's training. They cannot be confiscated. They cross borders. They generate value in any condition. Asset 2. Precious metals and hard portable currency. The historical record of Jewish wealth preservation consistently features gold, silver, and gemstones, held not as investment vehicles, but as portable stores of value. The Talmud in Bava Kama 10b discusses the treatment of portable valuables in contexts of flight. This is not historical curiosity. It reflects a cultural acknowledgement that the ability to carry value across a border was a survival necessity. The World Gold Council reported in 2023 that central banks globally purchased 1,136 tons of gold in 2022, the highest since 1967, citing geopolitical uncertainty. The individual logic mirrors the institutional one exactly. Asset 3. International network and relationship capital. Jewish diaspora communities historically maintained commercial relationships across political borders, what historians call bridging social capital. In Robert Putnam's landmark social capital research, bridging capital, connections across different geographies and social groups, is the single strongest predictor of economic recovery after personal financial crisis. Jewish communities institutionalized this centuries before the research confirmed it. Your international relationships, your trusted contacts in different jurisdictions, your embedded memberships in multinational communities, these are assets. Unmeasurable on a balance sheet, irreplaceable in a collapse. This is level 1 of the practical system. Take 5 minutes right now and identify 3 people you know personally in different countries, or at minimum in different economic regions, who you trust and who trust you. Write their names down. Those relationships are an asset category. If you cannot name 3, that column of your portfolio is empty. Asset 4. Multi-jurisdictional real estate. This is the nuanced one. Real estate is often thought of as the safest long-term store of value, and concentrated single-jurisdiction real estate is actually one of the most confiscable assets in existence. Every Jewish expulsion in history featured the immediate seizure of real property. The cultural adaptation was not to abandon real estate. It was to diversify it across jurisdictions, not for tax reasons, for survival reasons. Two properties in two different political environments is architecturally different from two properties in the same city, even if their values are identical. Asset 5. Community equity. The loop I opened at minute 3. Here's the answer. The asset that most consistently predicted Jewish economic survival was not on any balance sheet. It was membership in and contribution to community institutions. The synagogue, the school, the charitable fund, the burial society. These were not purely social organizations. They were equity stakes in institutions that provided practical value: housing support, food distribution, legal advocacy, educational infrastructure, regardless of individual financial condition. The modern equivalent: financial stake in or meaningful membership in durable community institutions. Private associations, professional guilds, religious organizations, educational foundations. These assets produce non-monetary returns, access, protection, social infrastructure that continue to function when financial markets don't. Level 2 of the system. Apply the 3-question anti-fragile filter to your current portfolio distribution. Confiscatable, non-portable, only works in stable conditions. Anything that answers yes to all 3 is a fragility. The goal is not to eliminate it, it's to balance it with assets from the other side of the filter. At minute 3, I opened the question about the one asset category that no financial statement shows, but that most consistently predicted survival. Here's the complete answer. It's relationship capital. Network equity. The ability to call someone in a different city, a different country, a different context, and have them answer. And it's not just social, it's economic. In every documented case of Jewish economic recovery after catastrophe, the first source of capital, startup capital for rebuilding businesses, first customers in a new city, first housing in a new country, was personal trust networks. Not banks, not institutions, people. The implication for you is direct. Your investment in relationships, not transactional networking, but genuine, long-term, trusted relationships across different contexts and geographies, is an asset with measurable economic value. And it is the most anti-fragile asset category on the list. It cannot be confiscated. It crosses every border. It generates value in any condition, including crisis conditions where every other asset class is under stress. Here is level 3, the long-term architecture. Review your 5 asset categories annually using this framework. For each of the 5 columns, skills, hard assets, networks, multi-jurisdictional property, and community equity, ask not what its current financial value is, but what its crisis function is. What does this asset do when other things fail? If you cannot answer that question for each category, that column is underbuilt. And this is important. The annual review is not about adding more assets. It's about rebalancing toward anti-fragility. The goal is not to make every asset crisis-resistant. It's to ensure that at least 1/3 of your total asset architecture would hold its function under the worst-case scenario you can realistically imagine. Now, let me close the loop I opened at minute 6. Why is knowledge-based and relationship-based wealth always the first to recover? The answer is elegantly simple. Those assets are inside people, and people move. They cannot be impounded at a border. They cannot be seized under a property law. They cannot be inflated away. When the container, the jurisdiction, the currency, the government, changes, the asset moves with its owner. Everything that is only valuable inside a specific container is, by definition, dependent on that container remaining stable. The tradition of investing in assets that live inside people, rather than inside systems, is the insight that 3,000 years of crisis produced. 1 year from now, if you identify your 3 trusted international contacts this week, run the anti-fragile filter on your portfolio this month, and review your community equity intentionally, here is what will be different. You will know that your portfolio is not just diversified, it is designed. Designed to function under conditions that would break a conventionally allocated portfolio. And that knowledge is itself an anxiety reducer of the first order. At the beginning, I asked you to imagine the collapse scenario and asked what you'd have left. I want you to answer that question again now, with the 5 categories in mind: portable skills, hard currency, network capital, multi-jurisdictional property, community equity. If the answer is fuller now than it was 15 minutes ago, that's the beginning of the architecture, not the completion, the beginning. The Talmudic third rule from the first video tells you how to categorize what you have. The fortress architecture from the second tells you how to structure your independence. These 5 assets tell you what belongs in the survival column of that architecture. The next video takes this further, into the question of what happens when you want to pass all of this to the next generation, without it being lost to legal fees, family conflict, and misaligned values. That's where most wealth preservation work actually breaks down. And there's a 3,000-year-old document that solves it, in a way that estate attorneys still haven't figured out. That's the next conversation. Stay with this channel.